Okay, how are you doing today, Grazel?
I'm doing good, Scott. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Um, so today I thought we could talk about what are the obvious signs that someone might actually need therapy. So, you're in a relationship with someone and things aren't feeling great, maybe. How do you know when you actually need help? Are there any particular signs you can think of?
Yeah, I think warning signs would be when communication is not going anywhere, where
Hmm.
you're just kind of back and it's like you're throwing darts at each other, right?
Hmm.
It's like
Like the analogy.
one dart is there. Yeah, so it's almost like, how do I do this? Like if you're throwing darts at each other, that's a big, big cue for you to go into therapy because that means you're not being received, you're not being heard,
Mm.
that each of you are on defense, attack, attack,
Yeah,
withdraw, withdraw. So when you see that, it's it's time to go to therapy.
yeah, yeah. So when it feels like both people are constantly on the offensive and I get like you're verbally or sometimes physically throwing stuff at each other, I guess.
Yes, right, right.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of maybe the communication is involves blame,
Mhm.
criticism, judgment. You're wrong. I'm right. You need to change this. I won't change until you do. So it's like there's an imbalance in the relationship.
Mm. Yeah, I won't change unless you do. I feel like that's probably quite a common thing for people to say. And that phrase in itself just kind of comes from a place of deep wounding, I guess. Yeah, so that's a really powerful thing to
Yeah,
think about. Like, why should I be the one to change if you're not going to? And I want to see you change first. But then, of course, the other person is going to be like, well, why should I change if you don't? Um, yeah.
right.
As soon as you get into that kind of conversation, I guess it's time to be like, okay, no, we need help. We need help now. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. So how can you really tell whether this is just like a rough patch in the relationship? Things are just tricky right now because work's really stressful, because we don't get any time together because of the kids, and whether it's something that's like, no, no, we need to think about this seriously. We need to get ourselves a therapist. What like what indicates whether something's going to get better by itself or whether you need help, basically.
I think I think, each of us are pretty well attuned when things are not going the way we want to in the relationship. So I think when it's just a maybe a situational disconnection where because there's stressors, like overwhelming stressors that create disconnection in the relationship, but they're able to talk about it and repair. Repair is such an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Repair means they're coming to each and hearing how hard,
Mm-hmm.
how painful things have become. And the other person is able to hear that, understand it, join the pain,
Mm-hmm.
and create a resolution. As long as they're able to do that, I don't really think they have to go to couples therapy for a long time.
Mm.
Now, if that part is missing and they're just in a defense cycle, attack cycle, withdraw cycle, that's a pretty solidified pattern of arguments.
Mm.
So that needs to be de-escalated and that needs to be they need to be in therapy if it's like that. That's not just a rough patch. It's
Mm.
not just a patch. They're wearing this cycle. It's not just a patch of clothing that you're putting on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I kind of hear you. So you've spoken a little bit about this kind of attack, defense, withdraw cycle. Do you feel like people can normalize that to the point where they just get so disconnected they don't even realize there's a problem. It's just like, this is the way we are now.
Absolutely. They've gotten used to it, right? Like you use the word normalize, like, oh yeah, this is what we do. This is just how we are. And this is how it's going to be. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
You can have a healthy level of communication and connection. You don't have to suffer for that long, and you don't have to normalize it, right? There's help out there. It's a matter of being ready and open to receiving help.
Yeah. And again, it's about having that awareness of there's something going on here which I don't like and I want it to change. And then if you can have that conversation with your partner, you can then make that decision. Okay, no, let's go and get some help. So sometimes I feel like it's less nowadays, but it's probably more like 20, 30 years ago. There was a view that you only go to therapy if you're crazy. You only go to couples therapy if your marriage is already failing. Um, what would you say to couples who have that worry even today?
I usually say that if you see that your communication with each other is not going anywhere, don't wait till it gets worse,
Mm,
right? The earlier you go to therapy, the less you'll ever need couples therapy,
yes. Yeah.
right? So if you wait, then expect that you're going to be in therapy for a longer time.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a few weeks ago when we spoke, you said you're not going to undo 40 years of dysfunctional relationship
Yeah.
dynamics in a year. Um, yeah,
Yes.
if you can get yourself to therapy sooner rather than later, it's always going to be helpful. Um, and yeah,
Yeah. Usually I tell them, look, if you go to therapy when you're seeing communication patterns starting to solidify,
mm,
that's actually a good time to go because couples therapy becomes like a preventative from it being worse,
yeah,
right? That when there's still safety in your relationship to receive each other, we can go deeper into it and take care of creating that safety again and strengthening it when you're not hating each other,
mm,
right? When there's still love that can help us back to a harmonious connection. But when couples have been angry at each other for quite some time, I'm going to see a lot of anger in the room.
mhm,
And you have to imagine that that's really hard for the therapist to work through. So
mhm.
we need a lot more time for that. So the earlier they go, the better.
Yeah, yeah. Do you ever find you have couples come where they don't actually have problems or issues or arguments between them? They're just coming because they're thinking, I want our relationship to be stronger. I'm happy with it as it is, but I feel like we could be closer.
Yes. Um, Great question. It's changing, like you said, not a lot. There are other couples that are very proactive in sustaining and maintaining the good connection they have with their partner. So if they're going into a deeper commitment in their relationship, like let's say they're gonna get married
Mhm.
or they're gonna start to have babies, right? They do come in and they're proactive about here are the things that we know are going to be problematic because we don't know how to talk about it,
Yeah.
right? So it could be that, hey, if we have different religious views for our children, can we start talking about that in couples therapy so that we don't have to argue about that later? Hey, once, we have children or once we decide to conceive, one partner is going to take time off. So that's going to be a single income family.
Mhm.
Let's talk about how we're going to build that, healthy communication pattern so that we don't feel Like we can't talk about financial changes.
Yeah.
A lot of those things people are seeking in premarital counseling, pre preconception, sometimes for couples that are in a monogamous relationship, sometimes when they're getting ready to open their relationship and start dating other people, they also come to therapy and look at, hey, how can we create safety agreements so that we don't hurt each other when we bring in another person in a relationship?
No, I mean, it's a really interesting idea that you would go to therapy when you are okay. Um, and the fact that people are sort of thinking in that serious way about these big life transitions, that's also really encouraging because I felt for some time that we sometimes put too much emphasis on the being swept up in emotion parts of like falling in love and entering a relationship, and we don't pay enough mind to the actual, okay, seriously, how are we logistically practically going to manage everything in this relationship? And I wonder, I'd be interested in your perspective. I wonder if that's where a lot of relationships break down because we're not trained to have those conversations necessarily.
Absolutely. We're not trained to talk about emotions, use emotions as a way to connect,
Mm.
right? Within the culture that we live in, well, things are changing, but talking about emotions are if you start to be, if you're emotionally sensitive, you're weak,
Mm.
right? So, and seeking therapy means there's something wrong with you, right? So that's a lot of different reasons for other people to say, hey, let's not ask for help. Let's just try to take care of this on our own. But if they are able to change the way they view therapy as a resource so that they don't have to be in therapy for a long time, then, I think it would be a lot beneficial for them.
Yeah, and it's like the thing. What would you prefer to lose a year of couples therapy or going through a very very messy divorce in 20 years? It's um, for me, it's a
Mhm.
kind of no brainer. Um, and yeah, I guess the
Yeah.
second you start to notice that something is dysfunctional, that's the step. That's the moment to say, okay, we need help because we can't manage by ourselves. And I think there's a certain humility to that. Um, it's scary to open a relationship up to the prying eyes of a therapist. Um, it's scary, kind of letting all the skeletons out of the closet. So how do you kind of
Yes.
address that in sessions and kind of put people at ease, I guess?
So the question is, how do I put people at ease when they're thinking that, what again?
When they're thinking, a there's a certain kind of humility, like I'm
Mhm.
having to admit that I don't know how to fix this problem. So I need to find someone who does know how to fix this problem, and that's why I'm going to therapy. And B, I'm scared that by going to therapy, there's all this stuff that's going to get uncovered, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to deal with it. So how do you deal with those two things?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think every single person has a different perspective of what therapy looks like. So just creating a good understanding, a good space for understanding each partner is coming from different places.
Mm.
Um, Normalizing each of their own process creates safety and alliance.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important. So that's how I do it. It's like, yeah, and that makes sense that you probably don't want to be in therapy because you're not ready to really go deeper,
Mhm.
but you're here. So that's something, right? That's a strong indicator that you're pushing yourself to make things work with your partner, right?
Yeah.
So really validating the not being ready to open up
Mm.
that deep in the beginning. I
Yeah,
mean, who does?
I know.
I don't know if I don't know if there's actually a person that dives that deep into therapy right away.
But it would just be
I
someone
don't
who's been in therapy
think
for a
that's a
long
normal.
time before, wouldn't it? Someone who's already done all that work.
Yeah,
That's the only person.
right,
You probably don't see an awful lot of that type of
right. But even then, right. But even then, when someone's been in therapy for that long, they're able to intellectualize an emotional process. And at times when we're in our head intellectualizing an experiential process, it doesn't allow us to go that deep,
person.
right? So just, I guess, a therapist really need to look at is intellectualization a way to protect going deeper? So I think there is a normalcy about not wanting to open up right away.
Yeah, but thank you. I think that's really helpful for people to know, like the importance of getting to therapy as soon as you notice something that isn't quite right and you're not happy with how things are in the relationship. Um, we spoke about how it's going to be easier to fix the dynamic, make things better, and a lot faster if you can do that sooner. So yeah, I think that's a really important message for people to hear. Thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah.
I'll speak again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.